Well, the vast majority of first-time voters in this election, they are Gen Z, or their older counterparts. Remember those millennials? They're getting a little bit older now. Christine Chan finds out who they are and just who they're going to vote for.
It's 2020 in the United States. The incumbent president is not proving as popular with young American voters.
I have more faith in Biden being that bridge between the older generation and the younger generation.
Echo, how you doing?
Biden is definitely the bridge that we need.
There are, of course, some of the younger folk enthusiastically pitching their support for this self-described stable genius. But on the whole, the data suggests young conservatives or Republican-leaning numbers, even just the die-hard Trump millennials, they're increasingly overtaken by many more youngsters left of the political spectrum. They're disturbed by the effects of climate change, school shootings, the president's refusal to disavow extremist groups and white supremacists.
Back in the day, when Joe Biden and Donald Trump were children themselves, American parents believed children should be seen and not heard. But in this election, children will be seen and heard. Gen Z and millennials, many of them first-time voters in 2020, make up the largest voting bloc in the United States.
Pew Research Center says that's some 37% of eligible voters. The Brennan Center for Justice says the youth vote could decide this electoral outcome.
You will determine the outcome of this election. Vote, vote, vote.
In my direct circle of friends, we're all first-time voters. Try and get the current president out of office. He's setting America back 10 years.
Because of the way that the government has handled the pandemic.
My aunt and uncle died of coronavirus. Wearing a mask in a pandemic should not be politics. That should just be like something you should do. You know, it shouldn't be like some crazy thing where you're like fighting in the Supreme Court.
I do think about jobs when we graduate just because COVID has caused a massive loss of jobs.
And another like 4 years of a candidate who's not going to do anything for climate change is, you know, pretty crazy.
I'm trying to remember the things that I really cared about the most before COVID-19 happened. And that would definitely be gun control.
People shouldn't be afraid when they're just trying to like peacefully protest for something. The policeman who killed George Floyd or the policeman who killed Breonna Taylor, there is no reason they should have been killed, especially if it's because of their race.
We'll talk about with like election interference with countries like Russia, Trump saying all these kinds of things about like mail-in ballots, all that kind of stuff. Seems like there's so much craziness going on. America seems really, really divided.
Professor, you must be tired.
Historian Dr. Alan Lichtman has studied American elections all the way back to 1864, when President Abraham Lincoln was re-elected. In 2016, he predicted Donald Trump would win the White House.
I would say to the first-time voters, this is the most consequential election of our times, that democracy really is on the ballot. It's your future.
Dr. Lichtman's model of the 13 keys to the White House now predicts that future will be determined by Joseph R. Biden after November the 3rd.
I think the popular vote and the Electoral College vote will coincide, that Donald Trump will lose both.
In days from now, we'll know if Dr. Lichtman's prediction holds true once again. The American electorate is beginning its most profound generational transition since the early 1980s. As many as 23 million new voters under the age of 23 will be watching and holding the next administration accountable for what they want for their country on healthcare, housing, jobs, economic mobility, and more. This generation of newbie voters is only growing in vast numbers and diversity. They will be looking to their president to unite the country so as to guarantee their future. This generation is the future of American politics and its democracy. Christine Chan, CNA, Singapore.